Most of us like to express ourselves by the clothes we wear, and today's fashion does have its extremes. But whether it's punk or designer clothes, what we wear today is nothing compared to what was worn in past centuries. The period costumes in The Phantom of the Opera are amongst the most beautiful ever created for the stage. And for Associate costume designer Anne Ellsbury, creating the costumes for The Phantom was a wonderful opportunity.
Yes, absolutely. This is the most detailed show I have ever worked on. I mean, there's detail on detail on detail. There's an incredible, I mean, it's the biggest show for braid. There must be hundreds of miles of braid used on this show. There are approximately 220 costumes in the show. Most of these costumes, there's at least 200 hours on a costume.
This is from the Don Juan scene, and it belongs to Piangi, who is one of the leads in the Paris Opera Company. And it's made of a lot of contemporary fabrics, but there's a very beautiful Indian fabric in here with the beadwork. It's quite marvelous.
The very first thing you do is you look at the sketches with the designer and sort of figure out what fabrics you want to use. And then there's the shopping. We bought a lot of antique trimmings and stuff like that, and antique costume pieces which have since been chopped up and used in little pieces. Some of them have been used as is, but not a lot.
This is the half-man, half-woman hat, and it'll be worn in the masquerade scene. And the masquerade scene is full of wonderful and odd and crazy, spectacular costumes.
Barry! Is that Barry? Barry!
Oh, I like that.
Something happens, especially when the costumes are as wonderful as this, designed so beautifully, and the fabrics are so rich that as soon as you put on a slave master's costume, for example, one of my own, and you have leather armbands all over and spikes around your head and this huge leather whip, and I mean, you can't but help but sort of start strutting in front of the mirror and practicing with it. And it's wonderful costumes, definitely, especially when they're as fine as this, add a lot.
Many of the special effects that you see on stage, the fires, explosions, fog and smoke, involve pyrotechnics. Phantom relies on pyro tricks as much as a modern rock show does. To create these effects, we called on a master of incendiary magic, pyrotechnics expert Doug Adams.
Geez, we've done everything from Iron Maiden and Van Halen to Level 42, The Cult. It's endless. There's so many of the rock bands out there that like the pyro. It's very intricate because everything's run underneath the stage. And it's a lot of lines run, and it's a lot of changes have to be done at the last minute. I like the aerial effects, the starburst, airburst, or waterfall effects, because a lot of times the audience doesn't expect things to go off above their heads in a theater or, you know, in a concert venue. Safety's the first thing. You know, safety has to come first. If there's an accident with pyro, it's not the same as having a miscue with a lighting call. Somebody can get hurt if they're at the wrong place at the wrong time. The pyrotechnician can't see the stage. There's an actor in front of it or on it, on the effect, and it's detonated. If it's not safe, it doesn't happen.
Because we want the look of the show to be as authentic as possible and true to its period, almost every actor in The Phantom wears a wig on stage, at least for part of the time. Some of the supporting actors may wear 5 or more wigs in their various roles. Whether that wig resembles his or her own hair or a beehived mountain of curls, wig making and maintenance are critical to the show. Laurie and Doreen Freeman are the wig master and mistress, and for them, working on The Phantom is a great experience.
It's like a wig maker's dream, isn't it, really? You know, you look at it and you think, oh, wow, we can do all these different periods, we can do all these different styles.
There are between 70 and 80 wigs. This is a raw wig. This is the way I receive the wig. And then it's cut and styled. First, you have to meet with the designer or the designer's assistant, go through the sketches, through the designs, and the wig is made, and then that's my job to, as I say, interpret the sketch.
Sometimes you come up with better ideas than what the designer has, too. You know, the designer sees it one way, but Doreen is extremely experienced with period hairstyling, so sometimes she does something and the designer will just say, that's even, that's better. We were reading one of the books and you came across the fact that they comb their own hair over the front of them a lot to give a natural look, and yet people who had their own hair would powder it to look like a wig, so that they looked wealthier and could afford wigs. And the term big wig came from the fact that if you were very wealthy, you could afford a very big wig.
This is the half man, half woman for the masquerade.
Hi, Mark. Can you make me something, huh? Ooh, that looks great. Man-woman today. It's the first time I've seen this.
You can't just willy-nilly put a wig on someone and say, go out on the stage. If that person's uncomfortable, it can, make them feel very poor on stage, and consequently their performance will suffer.
Unfortunately, a lot of actors have, they've had to wear some terrible wigs in their time. And their initial thing about wigs is, oh no, I don't have to wear a wig, do I? Until they get one on that's been made for them. And it's like, well, they're so thrilled. They can put it on and feel like that person. Yeah,
it's wonderful.
Thank you.
While the craft shops were busy making their props, wigs and costumes, the production activity moved from New York to Toronto's Tarragon Theatre. 6 weeks before opening night, the whole company came together and started to work on the blocking of the Phantom under the watchful and caring eye of stage manager Pat Thomas. The stage manager is the one person the director can count on to know about every detail of the production that will appear on the stage. She guides each rehearsal, and when we go into the theatre itself, Pat and her assistants will call the cues for the whole show. Like athletes preparing for a race, actors have to warm up every day before they get down to work. An athlete might pull a muscle. For us, it could be a leg or a shoulder, or that most valuable muscle of all, the voice. Our directors have designed special exercises to get us into shape.
All right, come on then, let's get these bodies into gear. Down, one. And up, and smooth, warm.
Assistant choreographer Ann Allen, besides being in charge of the dancers in the company, conducts a warm-up program for everyone.
The first thing is it brings everybody together as a company. So you don't start the day separate, you're all in, come together as a company, and you're all going towards the one aim. Secondly, they've got to get their bodies strong because there's an awful lot of movement required. It's 8 shows a week, it's a long time. So I kind of devised a warm-up which would slowly get them going and concentrating getting their centre strong, being able to breathe correctly so as they can move and sing. So we keep it light, everybody has a little bit of fun, but we're all working, nevertheless, we're all working and we're all gaining towards one aim.
This side, A1, A2, A3, A4, use the beat. Good.
Music director and conductor Jeffrey Heward also has ideas about vocal warm-ups, which might seem quite unusual to you.
Good. Panting.
Until you find out that Jeffrey has coached some of the world's greatest opera singers.
Because it's hard in a rehearsal, you repeat and you repeat and you repeat. And we don't want their voices to be tired. Well, hopefully they'll learn a system so that when we do the show, they can warm themselves up and feel good about their voices every night.